Before we embark on this incredible journey together, I have a small heartfelt request. Please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like. It costs you nothing but means the world to me. And let me know in the comments which beautiful corner of the world you're watching from. Your support truly makes a difference. Mom, we don't need you anymore. The words hung in the air of my kitchen like smoke from a burnt dinner. My son Marcus stood by the granite counter I'd saved 3 years to afford, his wife Jessica beside him with that practiced smile she wore when delivering bad news. "The kids are settled now," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "Jessica's got everything under control. We think it's time you step back." Step back. From what? From being their grandmother? From watching little Emma take her first steps last month while they were both at work? From picking up Tommy from daycare every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 years? I see. My voice came out steadier than I felt. And by step back, you mean? Jessica's smile tightened. "We've hired a wonderful nanny. Mary Poppins type, really. The children need consistency, and with you getting older—" "I'm 62, Jessica, not 90. "Of course not," Marcus jumped in quickly. "It's just that we want to establish our own family rhythms, you understand." I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had his face become so cold? When had my boy, who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, learned to speak to me like I was a burden to be managed? "I understand perfectly," I said, reaching for the dish towel with hands that only trembled slightly. "Would you like some coffee before you go?" "Actually, we should—" Marcus started. "We'd love some," Jessica interrupted, settling onto the bar stool like she owned the place. I moved through the motions of making coffee, muscle memory taking over while my mind reeled. The Keurig was a Christmas gift from them last year. "So much easier for you, Mom," Marcus had said. Now I wondered if it had been their first hint that they thought I couldn't handle the complexity of a regular coffee maker. The machine gurgled and hissed, filling the silence. Through the window above my sink, I could see Mrs. Patterson next door tending her roses. 85 years old and still climbing ladders to trim her hedges. Getting older indeed. "Here you go." I set their mugs down with the careful control of someone who desperately wanted to throw them instead. Marcus cleared his throat. "There's one more thing, Mom. We think it would be best if you didn't just drop by anymore. The nanny has a schedule and unexpected visitors disrupt the children's routine." Jessica finished smoothly. Unexpected visitors. That's what I'd become in the home where I'd changed their diapers, sung their lullabies, and stayed up all night when they had fevers. "I'll need my key back," Jessica added gently, extending her manicured hand. The key to their house, the house I'd helped them buy with a $20,000 down payment 3 years ago, sat heavy in my palm. I'd carried it every day since Tommy was born, a symbol of trust, of being needed, of being family. But as I looked at their expectant faces, something shifted inside me, something cold and calculating that I hadn't felt since my divorce 15 years ago. I smiled and dropped the key into Jessica's waiting palm. "Of course, dear, I completely understand." They left 20 minutes later, Marcus hugging me awkwardly at the door, Jessica air-kissing my cheek with that same practiced smile. I watched their BMW pull out of my driveway, then walked slowly to my home office and opened the filing cabinet where I kept my important papers. My will sat in the front folder, last updated just 6 months ago after Marcus and Jessica had asked me to be their emergency contact for the children. How thoughtful of me to have been so thorough. The next morning brought clarity with my coffee. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, surrounded by documents I'd pulled from my filing cabinet at dawn. Bank statements, investment portfolios, the deed to the lake house that had been in our family for 30 years. Everything I'd planned to leave to Marcus and his family when my time came. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter-in-law. "Thanks for understanding yesterday. The kids are adjusting well to Mary." I stared at the emoji, wondering if she'd practiced that level of casual cruelty or if it came naturally. Another buzz, this time from Marcus. Love you, Mom. You're doing the right thing. The right thing? For whom? I opened my laptop and typed, estate planning attorney near me, into the search bar. My original lawyer, Harold Brennan, had retired last year, but his replacement, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Morales, had handled the simple update to my will when the grandchildren were born. Her office could see me at 2 o'clock. Before leaving, I drove by Marcus and Jessica's house, my former second home. A silver Honda Civic sat in the driveway alongside their cars, the nannies, I assumed. Through the living room window, I could see a young woman with a blonde ponytail playing blocks with Tommy on the carpet, where I'd spent countless hours. She looked competent, energetic, everything I apparently wasn't anymore. I drove away without stopping. Patricia Morales' office occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian house downtown. Her receptionist, a motherly woman named Ruth, offered me tea while I waited. "Mrs. Henderson, Patricia will see you now." Patricia looked younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-40s, with short dark hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her office was warm but professional, filled with family photos and legal books. "Eleanor, good to see you again. How can I help you today?" I'd rehearsed this moment during the drive, but sitting in her leather chair, the words felt heavier than expected. "I need to make some changes to my will." "Of course. What kind of changes are we talking about?" I pulled out my current will and set it on her desk. "I want to remove my son and daughter-in-law as beneficiaries." Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's a significant change. May I ask what's prompted this decision?" "They've decided they don't need me anymore." The words came out matter-of-factly, which surprised me. Yesterday, they informed me that I'm no longer welcome to see my grandchildren without permission. They've hired a nanny and want me to step back from their lives. "I see." Patricia leaned forward. "Eleanor, family disputes can be emotional. Sometimes people say things they don't mean when tensions are high. Have you considered family counseling or—" "They took my key," I interrupted, "to their house, the house I helped them buy." That seemed to land differently. Patricia's expression shifted from gentle concern to professional attention. "Tell me about that. The house purchase." 3 years ago, they needed help with the down payment, $20,000 from my savings account. Marcus said it was a loan, but we never formalized any paperwork. It was family, you know. I trusted him. Patricia made a note. "Do you have bank records of the transfer?" "Yes, along with text messages from Marcus thanking me and promising to pay it back when they could. They never did. And now they've essentially banned you from the property you helped them acquire, while keeping the $20,000. The bitterness in my voice surprised me. I'd been hurt yesterday, angry this morning, but now I was furious. Patricia set down her pen. "Eleanor, before we proceed, I want you to understand something. Changing your will in anger isn't necessarily wrong, but it should be done with full consideration of the consequences. This isn't something you can easily undo if everyone reconciles later." "They made their choice yesterday," I said quietly. "Now I'm making mine." She studied me for a long moment, then pulled out a legal pad. "All right then, let's discuss your options." But first, I had a question that had been bothering me since dawn. "What happens if they contest the will?" I asked. Patricia tapped her pen against her notepad. "Well, that depends on several factors. How we structure the changes, your mental capacity, which is clearly sound, and whether we can demonstrate that your decisions were made rationally, not impulsively." "I want them to understand this isn't impulsive." "Then we need to document your reasoning. Create a paper trail that shows this decision evolved from their actions, not a momentary upset." She pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Tell me exactly what happened yesterday. Start from the beginning." I walked her through the entire conversation, from Marcus's cold announcement to Jessica's practiced smile to the key handover. Patricia took detailed notes, occasionally asking for clarification. "And before yesterday, what was your relationship with the grandchildren like?" "I was their primary caregiver when their parents worked. 2 days a week at minimum, sometimes more. I have photos, text messages from Jessica asking me to pick them up, grocery receipts from buying their favorite foods. I opened my purse and pulled out a small notebook. I keep track of expenses, for tax purposes, but also, I guess I'm organized that way. Patricia's eyes lit up. You documented your childcare contributions? Inadvertently, yes. Gas receipts driving to their activities, playground visits, even the pediatrician appointments when Marcus and Jessica couldn't make it. This is good, Eleanor. Very good. It shows your integral role in their lives and makes their sudden exclusion seem more unreasonable. She made another note. Now, let's talk about your assets. We spent the next hour going through everything. The house worth $400,000, my retirement accounts totaling another $300,000, the lake house valued at $200,000, and my life insurance policy for $100,000. Quite a substantial estate, Patricia observed. In your current will, Marcus inherits everything? 70%. 20% was earmarked for the children's college funds, 10% to charity. And now? I'd thought about this during my sleepless night. I want to establish college funds for Emma and Tommy, not accessible to their parents, just for education. The rest… I paused. I have a sister in Oregon who's been struggling since her husband died, and there are charities that actually appreciate help. Patricia nodded approvingly. Providing for the grandchildren's education while removing the parents as beneficiaries sends a clear message. You're not acting out of spite toward the children, just toward their parents' behavior. Exactly. I'll need a few days to draft everything properly. In the meantime, I recommend you start documenting any further interactions with your son and daughter-in-law. Keep emails, text messages, anything that shows their attitude toward you. I left her office feeling lighter than I had since yesterday's ambush, but as I drove home, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. Mom? Marcus's voice filled the car. Hey, I was thinking about yesterday. Maybe we were a little harsh. Not at all, I said smoothly. I think you were very clear about what you need. A pause. Well, yeah, but I mean, you're still the kid's grandmother. We don't want to completely… Marcus, you said you don't need me anymore. I heard you. I'm simply respecting your wishes. But what about Emma's birthday next month? You always make her cake. The cake. Triple chocolate with raspberry filling, a recipe I'd perfected over 3 years of trial and error until it became Emma's favorite. Last year, she'd insisted on helping, her tiny hands covered in flour as she stirred the batter. I'm sure the nanny can handle it, or the bakery on 5th Street makes lovely cakes. Mom, come on, don't be like this. Like what? Respectful of your boundaries? Another longer pause. Look, maybe Jessica and I were overzealous yesterday. We've been stressed with work and… Marcus, my voice was gentle but firm. You made a decision. You felt it was best for your family. I'm supporting that decision by giving you the space you requested. But I need to go, sweetheart. I have errands to run. I hung up before he could respond, my hands steady on the steering wheel. My phone immediately started buzzing with text messages, but I didn't look at them until I was safely parked in my driveway. The texts were predictable. Marcus. Mom, please call me back. We need to talk. Jessica. Eleanor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we meet for coffee? Marcus again. I'm coming over tonight after work. I forwarded all 3 to Patricia Morales with a brief note. The documentation begins. Her response came within an hour. Perfect timing. Keep records of everything. I spent the afternoon going through old photo albums, something I hadn't done in months. Pictures of Emma's first birthday, Tommy's first day of preschool, countless Sunday dinners at my house when their parents were too tired to cook. In nearly every photo, I was there, holding, feeding, reading, playing. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:15. Through the peephole, I could see Marcus pacing on my front porch, his tie loosened and his hair rumpled. Jessica stood slightly behind him, holding a bouquet of grocery store flowers. I opened the door with a smile. What a lovely surprise. Mom, we need to talk. Marcus stepped forward like he expected to be invited in automatically. I stayed in the doorway. Of course, dear. What about? About yesterday. About this coldness. It's not like you. I'm not being cold, Marcus. I'm being respectful of your decision. Jessica stepped forward, extending the flowers. Eleanor, these are for you. We really think there was a miscommunication yesterday. I accepted the flowers, carnations and baby's breath. The kind of generic arrangement you grab when you need something quick. Not like the orchids I'd given her for her birthday last month, chosen specifically because she'd admired them at the botanical garden. They're lovely, thank you. Can we come in? Marcus asked. Please? I stepped back and gestured them inside. They settled onto my living room couch, the one they'd helped me pick out 2 years ago when I redecorated after the divorce. Mom, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday, Marcus began. Jessica and I have been under a lot of pressure at work, and we might have come across as harsh. Not harsh at all. Very clear, actually. Jessica leaned forward. Eleanor, we value your relationship with the children. We always have. When we said we didn't need you anymore, we meant we didn't need you to feel obligated to help with childcare. We want you to enjoy being a grandmother without feeling like you have to be our unpaid babysitter. Interesting spin. I had to admire the effort. That's very thoughtful of you, Jessica. And the nanny is working out well? Mary? Yes, she's wonderful. Very experienced with children Emma and Tommy's ages. I'm glad to hear it. What's her background? A slight pause. Background? Her qualifications, education, previous families she's worked with. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we did our due diligence. Of course you did. I'm just curious. When you spend that much on professional childcare, you want to make sure you're getting value for money. How much do you think we're spending? Jessica asked, a sharp edge creeping into her voice. Oh, I have no idea, but quality nannies in this area charge at least $15 an hour, don't they? More if they have early childhood education credentials. With 2 children, probably $20 an hour minimum. The silence stretched long enough for me to do the mental math I'd been working on since yesterday. Let's see, if she's there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's about $800 a week, over $3,000 a month. I smiled pleasantly. Of course, I could be completely wrong about the rates. Marcus and Jessica exchanged a look that told me I wasn't wrong at all. The point is, Marcus said carefully, we want you to feel free to pursue your own interests, travel, take up new hobbies, meet people your own age. People my own age, like Mrs. Patterson next door? She's 85. I didn't mean, or maybe you meant the senior center? I went there last month for their community lunch. Lovely group of people, but the average age was about 75. Jessica's smile was starting to look strained. We just want you to have options. I appreciate that. I stood up. Can I get you both some coffee? Or are you in a hurry to get back to the children? Actually, Mary is staying late tonight, Jessica said. We thought we could take you to dinner, our treat. How generous, but I already ate. I hadn't, but the thought of sitting through a meal while they tried to manipulate me back into unpaid servitude made my stomach turn. Marcus stood too, his frustration finally showing. Mom, what do you want from us? Do you want an apology? Fine, I'm sorry. We handled yesterday badly, but this coldness isn't like you. You're right, I said quietly. It's not like the old me at all. The old me would have crumbled by now, apologized for being hurt, and begged them to let me back into their lives. But I wasn't the old me anymore. The old me would have accepted your explanation and pretended yesterday never happened, I continued. The old me would have thanked you for the flowers and offered to make Emma's birthday cake anyway. Marcus's face relaxed slightly. Well, yeah, that's what we were hoping for. I know. I walked to the front door and opened it. But the old me also would have let your father walk all over me for 27 years instead of finally filing for divorce. The old me would have kept giving and giving until there was nothing left. They followed me to the door, Jessica clutching her purse like a shield. "Mom, you're scaring me a little," Marcus said. "This isn't about Dad. This is about us, about family." "You're absolutely right. It is about family." I smiled at them both. "And family members respect each other. They don't dismiss each other when it's convenient, then try to manipulate their way back when they need something." "We're not manipulating," Jessica started. "Aren't you? 20 minutes ago, you were here to clarify a miscommunication. Now you're offering to take me to dinner and asking about Emma's birthday cake." Marcus stepped closer to me. "Because we realized we made a mistake." "People are allowed to change their minds, Mom." "Of course they are, just like I'm allowed to change mine." "About what?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had his father's eyes, the same blue-gray that could be warm or cold depending on what he wanted. Right now, they were calculating, trying to figure out what I wanted to hear. "About a lot of things, sweetheart, but we don't need to discuss all of them tonight." They left a few minutes later, Jessica air-kissing my cheek again, Marcus promising to call tomorrow. I watched their BMW disappear down my street, then went to my office and opened my laptop. Patricia had emailed me a preliminary draft of my new will. Reading it felt surreal. Instead of Marcus's name throughout the document, I saw my sister Linda's. Instead of Jessica inheriting my jewelry and personal items, everything went to various charities except for a few pieces earmarked for Emma when she turned 21. The college funds for both children were substantial, $50,000 each, enough to cover most of their education costs. But the funds were structured so that Marcus and Jessica couldn't access them for any other purpose. The money would go directly to accredited educational institutions only. My phone rang. Linda's name appeared on the screen. "Eleanor? I got the strangest call from Marcus about an hour ago." I closed my laptop. "What did he say?" "That you'd had some kind of family disagreement, and you were acting out of character. He wanted to know if I talked to you recently, if I thought you seemed unstable," was the word he used. Heat flashed through me. "Unstable?" His words, not mine. I told him you sounded perfectly fine when we talked last week, and that family disagreements don't make someone unstable. "But Eleanor, what's going on?" I told her everything. The dismissal yesterday, the nanny replacement, the key removal, today's attempted reconciliation. Linda listened without interrupting, making small sounds of sympathy and outrage in all the right places. "Those ungrateful little shits," she said when I finished. "Linda!" "What? They are. You've bent over backward for them for years, and the minute they don't need free babysitting, they toss you aside. Then when they realize how much that nanny is costing them, they come crawling back." "You think that's what happened?" "Oh, honey, I'd bet money on it. Mark my words, within a week they'll be asking you to help out with the kids again. Just temporarily, of course, while they find a more affordable childcare solution." "Well, they'll be disappointed." "Good for you. And Eleanor, Marcus calling me to ask about your mental state? That's manipulation, plain and simple. He's trying to build a case that you're not thinking clearly." A chill ran down my spine. "You think he suspects something?" "I think he's worried about something. Men don't usually care about family dynamics unless there's money involved." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my reflection in the window. Outside, Mrs. Patterson was bringing in her mail, moving slowly but steadily down her front walkway. 85 years old and still living independently, still tending her garden, still sharp as a tack. Getting older, my ass. I opened my laptop again and started typing an email to Patricia Morales. "I need to accelerate the timeline on the will changes. My son is already trying to establish that I'm mentally incompetent." Her response came within the hour. "Can you come in tomorrow morning at 10? We need to move quickly." But first, I had one more phone call to make. Dr. Sarah Chen had been my physician for 8 years, ever since I'd switched to a practice closer to home after the divorce. "Eleanor, this is an unusual request," she said after I'd explained what I needed. "You want a complete cognitive assessment? Is there something specific you're concerned about? I need documentation that I'm mentally competent to make important decisions. My son is questioning my judgment lately. A pause. I see. Well, you certainly seem sharp to me, but if you want formal documentation, we can arrange for neuropsychological testing. It would take a few hours and cost about $800. Insurance won't cover it unless there's a medical indication. That's fine. When can we do it? I have a cancellation Thursday morning, if you're available. Thursday. Today was Tuesday, which gave me exactly 2 days to get everything documented before Marcus could build whatever case he was constructing. Perfect. What should I expect? Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, attention span evaluation, standard stuff. Eleanor, if you don't mind my asking, has your son expressed specific concerns about your cognitive abilities? Not to me directly, but he's been making inquiries with other family members about my mental state. Dr. Chen's voice sharpened. That's concerning behavior. Are you worried about elder abuse? Elder abuse. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but the label fit. I don't know. Maybe. I just want to protect myself. Good for you. We'll get you scheduled. After hanging up, I spent an hour organizing all the documentation I'd need for Patricia tomorrow. Bank statements showing the $20,000 transfer to Marcus and Jessica. Text messages thanking me for the loan and promising repayment. Photos of me with the children at various events and activities. Receipts showing my financial contributions to their lives. Everything from birthday presents to emergency daycare payments when their nanny called in sick. Yes, they'd had a nanny before, a college student named Brittany who watched the children occasionally when Marcus and Jessica had evening work events. She'd been unreliable, often canceling at the last minute, which is when they'd call me to fill in. Emergency grandmother duty, Jessica used to joke. What would we do without you? Now I knew the answer to that question. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mom, can you watch the kids Thursday afternoon? Mary has a dental appointment, and Jessica has a client meeting she can't reschedule. I stared at the message for a full minute. Less than 48 hours after telling me they didn't need me anymore, less than 24 hours after claiming they wanted to free me from obligation. Here he was asking for free childcare. Linda had called it perfectly. I typed back, I'm not available Thursday. Perhaps you could reschedule Jessica's meeting or ask Mary to reschedule her appointment. The response came immediately. Mom, please, it's just for a few hours. The kids miss you. Ah, there it was. Emotional manipulation using the children as leverage. I screenshot the entire text conversation and saved it to a folder on my phone labeled Evidence. Another text. We'll pay you $50 for the afternoon, $50 for 4 hours of childcare for 2 children, $12.50 an hour, less than minimum wage, and far less than they were paying their wonderful nanny. I didn't respond. Within an hour, my phone rang. Marcus, of course. Mom, did you get my texts? I did. So, can you help us out Thursday? I already answered that question, sweetheart. I'm not available. What do you have going on that's so important? The question was casual, but I heard the underlying assumption that nothing in my life could be more important than their convenience. A medical appointment. Can you reschedule it? No. A pause. Mom, are you okay? You're being really difficult. Difficult. There was that word again. Difficult. Cold. Not like myself. All because I'd stopped being available at their convenience. I'm fine, Marcus. Just respecting the boundaries you established. What boundaries? You said you didn't need me anymore. You hired a nanny. You took my key. You wanted me to step back from your family life. I'm simply giving you what you asked for. But this is different. This is an emergency. A dental appointment is an emergency? You know what I mean. We're in a bind. Then I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're both very capable people. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. But Mom, this isn't over. We need to sit down and have a real conversation about what's happening here. Whenever you'd like, dear. After he hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back deck watching the sunset. For the first time in years, I had an evening with no responsibilities, no obligations, no one needing me to drop everything and solve their problems. It felt strange, but not unpleasant. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I was simply Eleanor, not mom, not grandma, not the emergency backup plan. Patricia Morales reviewed my documentation with the focused intensity of a prosecutor preparing for trial. "This is excellent work, Eleanor. You've essentially created a timeline showing their dependence on you, followed by abrupt dismissal, followed by immediate attempts to reinstate you on their terms." She spread the printed text messages across her desk. "And this request for emergency babysitting less than 48 hours after they dismissed you? It demonstrates their sense of entitlement to your services." "Should I be documenting my refusal to help them?" "Absolutely, but carefully. You don't want to seem vindictive or uncaring about the children's welfare. Frame it as respecting their stated wishes for independence." She pulled out a thick folder. "I've prepared 2 versions of your new will. Version 1 makes the changes we discussed, removes Marcus and Jessica as beneficiaries, establishes education funds for the children, redistributes the remainder to your sister and charities. And version 2? Version 2 is more pointed. It includes specific language about why the changes were made. It's legally risky because it could provide grounds for them to contest, but it sends an unmistakable message about their behavior." I thought about Marcus's phone call to Linda, his questions about my mental stability, his assumption that I would always be available to solve his problems. "Show me version 2. She handed me several stapled pages. The legal language was dense, but one paragraph jumped out. "I have chosen to modify the distribution of my estate based on the expressed wishes of my son, Marcus James Henderson, and his wife, Jessica Marie Henderson, that they no longer need my involvement in their lives or the lives of their children, as communicated to me on September 18, 2025. I am respecting their desire for independence by ensuring they remain independent after my death." "It's nuclear," Patricia said quietly. "Once you sign this, there's no pretending it was anything other than a direct response to their treatment of you. Will it hold up if they contest? With your cognitive evaluation scheduled for tomorrow and all this documentation? Yes, I believe it will. You're clearly competent. You have rational reasons for your decision, and you're not acting impulsively." I stared at the paragraph again. Cold, formal legal language that captured the hurt and anger I'd been carrying since Sunday. "Let me think about it overnight." "Of course, take your time." On the drive home, I stopped at Emma and Tommy's daycare center. Not to see them, visiting hours were long over, but to talk to Mrs. Rodriguez, the director who'd known our family for 3 years. "Eleanor, how lovely to see you. Are you here to pick up the little ones?" "Actually, I wanted to ask you about their new pickup arrangements." Mrs. Rodriguez's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, yes, we received the updated authorization forms from their parents. You're no longer on the approved pickup list." The words hit harder than I'd expected, even though I'd known they were coming. "When did that change take effect?" "Monday morning. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I know how close you are to Emma and Tommy. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. Their parents hired a nanny and want to handle pickup themselves." "The nanny seems nice enough. Very young, though. I think she's still in college." That was interesting. "She's been picking them up this week?" "Tuesday and today, yes. Yesterday their father came, which was unusual. He seemed stressed." Marcus had never picked up the children from daycare in the 3 years they'd been enrolled. That was my job on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Jessica's on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Marcus usually worked late on Fridays, so I covered that day too, when needed. "Did he say anything?" Mrs. Rodriguez hesitated. "He asked if you'd been by to see the children. When I said no, he seemed surprised. He mentioned something about you not feeling well lately." Not feeling well. Another seed of doubt about my mental state, planted with someone who'd known me for years. "I feel fine, Mrs. Rodriguez. Better than I have in a while, actually." Her relief was visible. "I'm glad to hear that. You've always been such a wonderful grandmother to those children. They talk about you constantly." The drive home blurred slightly as unexpected tears filled my eyes. I'd been so focused on protecting myself from Marcus and Jessica's manipulation that I hadn't fully processed what I was losing. Emma's hugs when I picked her up, Tommy's excited chatter about his day, story time on my couch while their parents worked late or went to dinner. Those children were innocent casualties in this war their parents had started. At home, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address, but I recognized Jessica's handwriting on the label. Inside were the photo albums I'd made for Emma and Tommy's first birthdays, albums that had been displayed on their living room bookshelf. No note, no explanation. Just my memories, returned like unwanted gifts. I sat on my living room floor surrounded by photos I'd carefully chosen and arranged. Emma's first smile, Tommy's first steps, family dinners at my table, holiday mornings at their house. In nearly every picture, I was part of the story. But apparently, that story was over. My phone rang, interrupting my trip down memory lane. "Eleanor?" Linda's voice was tight with concern. "I just got another call from Marcus." I set the photo albums aside and put the phone on speaker. "What did he say this time?" "He's worried about you. Says you're refusing to help with the grandchildren, acting cold and distant, making concerning decisions. He asked if I thought you might be having some kind of breakdown." A breakdown. His word, not mine. "Eleanor, what's he so worried about? You sound fine to me, but he's acting like you've lost your mind." I looked around my living room. Clean, organized, bills paid and filed, photo albums neatly stacked. If this was what a breakdown looked like, it was remarkably tidy. "I think he's worried about money." "What kind of money?" "The kind he expected to inherit someday." A long pause. Oh, honey, you didn't." "I'm considering it." "Good for you. It's your money, Eleanor. You earned it, you saved it. You get to decide what happens to it." "He's been telling people I'm mentally unstable. I have a cognitive evaluation scheduled for tomorrow to prove I'm competent to make my own decisions." "Smart. Very smart." Linda's voice hardened. "You know what this reminds me of? That business with David's father when he died? Remember how Sandra started acting like she was the only child who'd ever done anything for him? How she pushed all the other siblings away from the funeral arrangements and then acted shocked when they were upset about it?" I did remember. Linda's neighbor, Sandra, had systematically isolated her father from his other children in his final years, convincing him they didn't care, then inherited everything while claiming she'd been his only devoted caregiver. This feels different, though. Marcus isn't trying to isolate me from anyone. No, he's isolating you from himself, from his children, from the role you've played in his life for years, and now he's setting up a narrative about your mental state in case you do something that threatens his financial expectations. The accuracy of Linda's observation hit me like cold water. "You think he knows about the will change? I think he suspects you're angry enough to consider it. And if you are changing your will, he wants to be able to claim you weren't competent when you did it." After we hung up, I sat in my darkening living room thinking about Marcus's behavior over the past 2 days. The casual dismissal Sunday, the attempted reconciliation Monday, the emergency babysitting request Tuesday, the questions about my mental state to Linda, the lies to Mrs. Rodriguez about me not feeling well. The photo albums returned without explanation. It was a pattern. Create the problem, then position himself as the reasonable party trying to help his unstable mother. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Dr. Chen's office number. "This is Eleanor Henderson. I scheduled a cognitive evaluation for tomorrow morning. I need to change that to first thing in the morning if possible, and I need the results documented and notarized by end of day." "Mrs. Henderson, is everything urgent about this evaluation? You sound stressed." "I'm fine, but I need official documentation of my mental competence as soon as possible. Someone is building a case that I'm not." A pause. "I see. Let me check our schedule. We can do 8 a.m. if you can be here by 7:45 for prep." "Perfect. Thank you." I spent the evening organizing everything for Patricia. Bank statements, text messages, Dr. Chen's evaluation results by end of day tomorrow, and one more piece of documentation I decided to obtain. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my longtime accountant, Richard Webb. Richard, I need a comprehensive financial statement showing my assets, debts, and competency to manage my own affairs. I also need documentation of any gifts or loans I've made to family members over the past 5 years, including the $20,000 I provided to my son Marcus for his house down payment in 2022. Can you have this ready by Friday afternoon? This is time sensitive. His response came within an hour. Eleanor, this sounds serious. Is everything all right? I typed back, everything's fine. I'm just making sure my affairs are in order. Which was true as far as it went. My affairs had never been more in order. But tomorrow would determine whether I was ordering them for my family's future or for their rude awakening. Dr. Chen's cognitive evaluation was thorough, methodical, and oddly satisfying. 3 hours of memory tests, pattern recognition, problem-solving exercises, and logical reasoning challenges. I felt sharp, focused, almost energized by the mental workout. Excellent results, Eleanor, Dr. Chen said as we finished. Your cognitive function is well above average for your age group. Superior, actually, in several categories. And you'll document that? Absolutely. I'll have a complete neuropsychological report ready this afternoon, along with a notarized letter confirming your mental competency. May I ask what prompted this evaluation? My son has expressed concerns about my judgment lately. I want official documentation that my mind is sound. Dr. Chen frowned. Eleanor, based on what I've observed today and in our previous appointments, you show no signs of cognitive decline, depression, or impaired judgment. If your family is pressuring you or questioning your mental capacity without medical basis, that could constitute elder abuse. I'm handling it. I hope so. But please call if you need resources. There are legal protections for seniors facing family manipulation. I left her office with a thick envelope containing my cognitive evaluation results and drove straight to Richard Webb's accounting firm. He'd prepared my requested financial statement and had questions. Eleanor, this comprehensive review shows you're in excellent financial shape. Very conservative investments, substantial liquid assets, no debt except your minimal mortgage. Why the sudden need for documentation? Family planning purposes. Regarding that $20,000 transfer to Marcus, that's listed as a gift on your tax returns, but these text messages you provided suggest it was intended as a loan. If you want to pursue repayment, I don't, but I want it documented as money I gave them that was never repaid. Richard studied me carefully. Eleanor, in 30 years of doing your taxes, I've never seen you this strategic. What's going on? I'm learning to protect myself. At 2 o'clock, I met Patricia Morales with both evaluations in hand. She reviewed everything with obvious satisfaction. This is bulletproof documentation, Eleanor. Cognitive evaluation showing superior mental function, financial assessment confirming your capacity to manage complex assets, clear timeline of your son's concerning behavior. If you sign the new will today, it will be virtually impossible to contest successfully. I stared at the document, version 2, with its pointed explanation of why Marcus and Jessica were being removed as beneficiaries. How long do I have to decide? There's no legal deadline, but practically speaking, the longer you wait, the more opportunity they have to build their case about your mental state or to reconcile just enough to muddy the waters. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, can we please talk? I'm worried about you. I showed Patricia the message. She read it and raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. How did he know you were seeing lawyers and doctors today? He didn't, but he's been monitoring my behavior since Sunday. This is probably his response to me not answering his calls yesterday. Eleanor, I need to ask you something directly. Do you want revenge against your son, or do you want to protect yourself and your assets? The question stopped me cold. What's the difference? Revenge is about hurting him. Protection is about ensuring your wishes are respected and your boundaries are maintained. The will can accomplish both, but your motivation matters for how we proceed. I thought about Sunday afternoon. Marcus's casual dismissal, Jessica's practiced smile, the way they'd taken my key like they were repossessing a car. The photo albums returned without explanation. The lies told to Mrs. Rodriguez and Linda. "I want them to understand that choices have consequences," I said finally. "They chose to exclude me from their lives when it was convenient. Now I'm choosing to exclude them from my financial plans when it's convenient for me." Patricia smiled. "That's protection, not revenge. And it's completely rational." I picked up the pen. The signature took 30 seconds. Patricia witnessed it and had her secretary notarize the document immediately. "Congratulations," she said, as I put the papers in my purse. "You're now officially in control of your own legacy." On the drive home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete autonomy. No obligations to meet, no emergencies to solve, no guilt about disappointing anyone. For the first time since my divorce, I was answerable only to myself. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. The message was predictable. "Mom, I'm coming over after work. We need to clear the air about whatever's happening here. See you around 6. I looked at my house, my sanctuary, my space, my rules, and made another decision. I wasn't going to be home at 6. I drove to Willow Creek Park, the same place I'd brought Emma and Tommy countless times to feed the ducks and play on the swings. The late afternoon sun filtered through the oak trees as I walked the familiar path around the pond, my newly signed will secure in my purse. My phone buzzed repeatedly, Marcus calling, texting, probably standing on my front porch wondering where I'd gone. For the first time in years, someone else's urgency wasn't my emergency. An older woman sat on the bench where I usually watch the children play, feeding breadcrumbs to a cluster of mallards. She looked up as I approached. "Beautiful evening," she said with a warm smile. "It is." I sat beside her, watching the ducks paddle contentedly across the water. "You come here often?" "Every day since my husband died 2 years ago. It's peaceful." She scattered more breadcrumbs. "I used to bring my grandchildren here, but they're teenagers now. Too busy for Grandma." "I'm sorry." She shrugged philosophically. "Children grow up. Priorities change. That's life." "What if it's more than that? What if they push you away completely?" The woman studied me with kind eyes. "Then you love them from a distance and build a life that doesn't depend on their approval." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun cast golden reflections on the water. My phone continued buzzing, but I ignored it. "I changed my will today," I said suddenly, surprising myself. "Good for you. Your money, your choice." "My son won't understand." "Then that's his problem to solve, not yours." The simplicity of her response was liberating. Marcus's understanding wasn't my responsibility. His feelings weren't my burden. His financial expectations weren't my obligation. At 7 o'clock, I drove home to find Marcus's car gone from my driveway. A handwritten note was tucked under my door. "Mom, I'm worried about you. This isn't like you. Please call me. We can work through whatever's wrong. I love you. Marcus." I crumpled the note and threw it away, then poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back deck watching the stars appear. My phone rang one final time. Marcus again. This time I answered. "Hi, sweetheart." "Mom, thank God. I've been worried sick. Where were you?" "At the park, thinking." "We need to talk. Can I come over?" "Not tonight, Marcus. I'm tired." "Then tomorrow. Mom, I know we hurt your feelings on Sunday. Jessica feels terrible about it. We want to make things right." "There's nothing to make right. You told me what you needed. I'm giving it to you." "But you're acting so cold, so unlike yourself." "Maybe this is exactly like myself. Maybe you just never paid enough attention to notice." A long pause. "That's not fair." "Neither is dismissing someone who's devoted years to your family, then expecting them to pretend it never happened." "Mom." "Good night, Marcus. Give Emma and Tommy my love." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning brought peace like I hadn't felt in years. No early calls about emergency childcare, no texts about forgotten lunch money or last-minute school events, no one needing anything from me at all. I made coffee, read the newspaper, and planned my day around my own interests. At noon, I called Linda. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Free." "And the will?" "Signed, sealed, and legally bulletproof." "Any regrets?" I thought about Emma and Tommy, about the relationships I was sacrificing to protect myself from their parents' manipulation. The pain was real, but so was the clarity. No regrets. They made their choice. Now I've made mine. 3 weeks later, Marcus and Jessica tried once more to reconcile, bringing the children for an unannounced visit. Emma hugged my legs and asked why I hadn't come to see her. Tommy showed me a drawing he'd made at school. The manipulation was masterful, using my love for the children to override my boundaries with their parents. But I'd learned too much about myself to fall for it. I spent an hour playing with Emma and Tommy, while Marcus and Jessica watched hopefully from my kitchen. When it was time to leave, I hugged both children tightly. "I love you both so much," I whispered to them. "Always remember that." As they drove away, Emma's face pressed against the rear window. I felt my heart break a little, but I also felt my backbone strengthen. 2 months later, Patricia called with news that Marcus had hired an attorney to investigate my recent erratic behavior and concerning financial decisions. They were building a case for incompetency. "Too late," Patricia said with satisfaction. "The will is valid, your cognitive evaluation is documented, and their own behavior created the circumstances that justified your decisions. They have no legal ground to stand on." My final words are these. Sometimes the people we love most take the most from us because they assume we'll always forgive, always understand, always be available. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's wisdom. I learned that being needed and being valued are very different things. I learned that unconditional love doesn't require unconditional availability. And I learned that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. Marcus will inherit nothing from me but the knowledge that choices have consequences. Emma and Tommy will inherit educational funds and the memory of a grandmother who loved them enough to stand up for herself. And I will inherit the rest of my life, lived on my own terms. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and keeping your dignity? Your stories matter, and I'd love to hear them. Thank you for listening to mine. Eleanor.